ever knew something wasn't right until he was gone. I mean, Kyler was a very lovable kid, good kid, popular kid, well-liked, huge heart. He cared for everyone. Just the other night at the football game, I had a young lady who was older than Kyler, a year older, but they spent a lot of time together in one particular class, and she mentioned how insightful he was of other people's feelings. So he was a huge-hearted kid. All of my children are huge-hearted. I'm huge-hearted. We definitely feel. I think sometimes we leave our hearts on our sleeves. So he was a happy-go-lucky kid, pretty easygoing. Loved to smile, loved to see people smile. Loved football. He was his brother's biggest fan. I think that's what hurts me most, is that he left his siblings. He wanted to start recruiting his brother at such a young age. He's seen a talent in his brother. Although Kyler was an athlete, what he saw in his brother was something more than he saw in himself, I guess. He was just that kid, though. So when I noticed something was wrong was when we had lost him. I mean, I can look back now and say that was a red flag, this was a red flag. At that moment, I couldn't. But at that time, I wasn't looking. I knew he had gone through a breakup. I knew that he was emotionally sad. But we talked a lot. And when I say we talked a lot, maybe I talked a lot.
That was powerful. You said as a mom, maybe you talked a lot.
Yeah.
If you were to do that over again, do you think maybe you talked too much and didn't listen enough?
Possibly. I think as a parent, we want to fix. We want to help. We want to make them feel better. So when I'm talking to him, letting him know that people grow. Sometimes in growth, they get a little scared. So maybe justifying the breakup. I mean, I knew that the young lady was a beautiful, wonderful young lady. She wasn't a mean person. She never set out to hurt anyone. People grow. So I think I did a lot of that talking, a lot of what may have happened, to where maybe I just needed to sit back and let him talk.
Do you blame some of the decision he made on the breakup, her?
I don't think her.
So emotionally, the breakup and the loss, and
I think emotional. I mean, he was sad. No blame would ever go on her in my eyes. She was a young lady. In life, we have breakups. In life, we grow from breakups. I think you've got a very emotional kid. I'm guessing wasn't sleeping well. With exhaustion, you start losing focus. These are things I didn't look for at the time, so I can say this now because I've educated myself.
Right.
Maybe he wasn't eating well, so now you're missing the nutrition part. And any time that we've poor nutrition, poor sleep, our thoughts, our patterns, our mental health is not there.
Right.
And that's when we start spiraling into poor decisions. I think when you go through a breakup...
Do you think you missed it? Did you see the lack of sleep, the poor nutrition? Was he isolating himself?
I wouldn't say he was isolating himself. The night before, possibly, to where we would usually hang out, talk. He did want just time to be alone. Once again, I was like, he probably needs time alone.
I think as a parent, it's a good thing to let our kids be alone and process this, because we can't fix it.
And figure, yes.
And them being alone, that's when they're growing and maturing in those coping skills and problem solving skills. And he went to the ball game the night before he took his life with some of his friends.
Uh-huh.
What ball game was it?
It was a basketball game that was in another town. So he had rode over with some of the upperclassmen that could drive. And I figured, knowing that he was hurting, he needed time with his friends as well.
Absolutely. Any of the friends have anything to say after? I mean, this is literally about 13 hours before he made that final decision.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, he goes to the ball game with his friends. By the time he got home and he made the final decision, he wrote a letter. He thought this out. What was he like when he came home that night? Did you see him?
Yeah. We talked. His sister was at the front door to greet him when he got home. His siblings were going to bed, and he seemed fine. Up until at one point, he asked if he had to go to school the next day, and I told him he did. And he made the comment, "It's not like I'm going to college," which wasn't completely out of character for Kyler. He wasn't one that loved school so much. So to hear that from him wasn't something that I thought was odd or out of character. The only thing about that night was, in the evening when I thought maybe something was up, he didn't want to talk, and he wanted to be left alone. And that's what I did. The next morning, he didn't want to get out of bed. He didn't want to go to school.
Yep, that was out of character for him? Or he liked to sleep in? He struggled in the mornings?
Kyler liked to sleep. He was the kid that get up 15 minutes, get in the shower, get out the door. He wanted to sleep as much as he could.
Did you find yourself always yelling, let's go, come on, get up, get out of bed?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been a yeller.
Which is typical for moms, get up,
Right.
up, let's go.
If you don't hear me at this voice, you'll hear me at this voice, or the urgency of a let's go now. Yeah.
What happened then?
It was a late start day, so.
Which wasn't a late start for school?
Yeah, so most days start at 8:15. This was a certain day. Every other Wednesday, school started at 9:15. It was odd that I was even home. Usually I would go ahead and get the kids up. I would be at work by 8. I wasn't feeling the best that morning, so I had told my boss that I wouldn't be in until a little bit later. I was kind of taking my time that morning, getting myself ready. So my patients were probably maybe even a little bit shorter than they would be on a normal morning because I didn't feel well. So he had gotten up and, had put his jeans on, had put his shirt on, and he was working his way out. Normally he would have dropped off his brother at the middle school. But since I knew he was moving slower, I went ahead and said that I would take his sister to the elementary school, his brother to the middle school. He could just get to the high school. When I left that morning, I told him I was taking the kids to school. I loved him and to have a good day. And that's exactly what I did. I took his sister to school, took his brother to school, drove back by my house to make sure he had gotten out the door into school. His vehicle was gone, so I went on into work.
Vehicle was gone, you had nothing.
Assumed he went to school. I had no reason to think he didn't go to school. Kyler was that kid that he just had a farm permit, so he couldn't freely drive. He could drive to and from school, to and from work, and he couldn't have anybody but siblings or parents in his vehicle. So he was the kid that I knew the route he would go to and from school. He was a very cautious driver. So when his vehicle wasn't there, I assumed he had gone straight to school.
And what happened?
I had gotten to work, and probably about 9:30, 9:45, we live in a small town, so from the time it took me to the mile across town, I got a call from the school stating that he hadn't made it to school. So I had even said he was running a little bit late. They said, let's check. Maybe he came in late. They called down to the classroom and he was not there. They came back and told me. Sorry. At that point, I said, okay, I'll let you know what's going on. Sorry, thanks, hung up the phone, sent him a text that said, I need to know where you're at now. I didn't get a response immediately, so I left work.
What were you thinking at that point?
Um,
Because you had no indication that something was wrong.
No.
Typical Kyler, you knew he had the breakup, he was hurting. And then when he wasn't at school, what then?
I guess I was thinking at that point, probably that he had just, really, I never thought anything was wrong other than he probably found a bed to go back to sleep in. I guess the thought did cross my mind, did he stop at the gas station and grab something to eat? So my office was only a block from his dad's house, where my kids, we bought that home and raised our children. So just thinking in my head, okay, let's figure out where he's at. When I left my office, I drove right by his dad's house. I looked up and his vehicle was there. So I pulled in, left my car running. I was walking into that house to have a heart-to-heart talk. Hey, you don't you don't get to just come home and go to bed. We have to go to school. That was what my head was, is I'm gonna rip your butt a little bit, kinda. And that's when I found him.
If you were to tell other moms, at what point would you have done something differently? Where?
I think as a mom, number one, if I don't place a little bit of blame on myself, am I really a mom? My job is to take care of them and make sure they're safe. I was the last one to see him alive, and the first one to see him not. So I have to take some of that. I'm healthy, and I won't put that blame on myself and dwell on it and let it eat me up, because that's exactly what it would do. So I have to move past that, and that's what I've done. So what would I do different? That morning, knowing that he was struggling, I guess I should even go back. I would have listened. Instead of talking as much, I would have listened and maybe guided instead of tried to tell him, this is a part of life, because he was 15 years old. This was the only life he knew. The pain he was feeling was so real, where to us, we've had so much more pain since that first breakup that I think we're numb to how they're feeling. So I guess to me, it was like, you'll get through this, kid. So I think I would have tried to have maybe remembered more of what I felt like during that first breakup and how your world really is crushed. So I would have listened. I would have encouraged him to tell me how he was feeling.
What if you didn't want to talk?
Being educated now, knowing what I know now, I would have asked my son, are you okay? How is your heart?
You know what I love about that question? You can't not answer that with emotion.
Right.
How is my heart? That's so much deeper and different than how are you?
Right.
I'm good. There's so much in good. How is your heart? Okay. Yeah, it's hurting.
Right. The morning of, instead of trying to rush everybody to be on time, to get to work, to get to school, I wish I would have slowed down.
It's not just our kids that are rushing. So are we.
Yeah. Wish I would have slowed down, not yelled. Wish I would have wrapped my arms around him and told him how much I loved him. Because maybe that's all he needed that morning. Maybe that's all he needed.
Then again, let's remember, you didn't know.
I didn't know.
And so if we don't know, why should we stop and do something different? But then, like you said, going back before that morning, maybe we should have listened more than spoke.
Right.
And that's where we talk about kids have what they need, they don't have what they want.
Right.
And they want that, can you just validate my thoughts? I don't want to be judged. I want you to listen, and I just want to time. You are very healthy. You've done amazing. I feel lucky to be able to work with you, and you're doing a lot of good things, man.
Thank you. I just want parents to know that we do need to slow down. We do need to be present. We don't need to fix them. We need to walk with them.
And it's harder being a parent today than it probably ever has been, with all this psychological, physical, emotional, and then you add all the social media and the internet, and kids are on 24/7, and coping skills and problem solving skills, and we can't fix it for them.
Can't.
We can listen, encourage and support them, hug them.
And if we don't know what to do, because how do we know what to do? We need to figure out something. We need to ask for help. And as parents, we need to ask for help. If that's going to your local doctor, if it's getting into therapy, like, we have to ask for help, because we're not given a handbook either. And so if we're sitting back saying, this isn't going to happen to me, I pray every day that you're right and it's not going to happen to you. But I would have never thought it was going to happen to me. So we have to know the warning signs. We have to know what to look for. And we can't be scared to seek help. That's one of the biggest things when I do get a phone call. Kids like to make comments. I'm just going to go kill myself. I'm going to take a toaster bath. I'm going to drink bleach. All of these comments, all of that stuff has to be taken serious. Maybe they're doing it for attention. Maybe they don't mean it. But we have to act. And if I don't know what to do in a situation, because I don't always know resources, rural communities don't have resources, call 911, call the police, ask for an emergency intake. I don't care what you have to do. Make sure somebody is doing something and ask for help. We may have to search for help in rural communities, but we'll find it. It's okay to drive an hour or 2 hours to find the perfect therapist, or to find that person that your kid can connect with, you can connect with. It can help you walk through it.
Well, you just heard it from Betty. It takes a lot to share that story. I'm very proud and thankful and honored that I have Betty on my team. Betty gets to help these communities before she gets to answer the questions and talk about what they're going through, and she gets to share their stories to let these communities know that they're not alone. Working with Betty certainly has made me a better person, has made me a better educator, and together I think we're doing pretty awesome things, and just really proud that I get to work with someone who's passionate and is not afraid to use her story to, we're saving lives and giving people hope. I can't expect anything. It's just incredible. I hope this helped you, and if you can share this with anybody that needs to understand teen mental health and the loss of a child, or someone that may have been through a loss, they're not alone. Thanks so much.